of scorching heat. I'm actually on Zoom from Phoenix, Arizona, where it was 104 when we arrived yesterday afternoon. But how long have you been a member of Emmanuel? This just shows you can be physically in lots of different places and still be part of Emmanuel. But are you a first timer, a brand new member, or still just visiting? Or are you a long-term member? Our wonderful Thelma Hartnett is going to be celebrating her 100th birthday next week. And she hasn't been a member all of those 100 years, but she has been a member for many, many decades. And somewhere in our Zoom congregation this morning, there's somebody who has been a member the longest. And somewhere there is a person or two who has been a member for the shortest amount of time. And do you think that those who've been members longer should have more benefits? Should they have more access to pastoral care? Should they have more influence with the vestry? Should they be first in line for our Wednesday dinners when they are able to resume? Or should those who've been working longer have a better seat in church when we get back into our sanctuary? They're somewhat absurd questions, but they may have crossed your mind from time to time as you think about your place and your influence in the community of Emmanuel. How do I fit in? Is my contribution valued? Do I count as much as the next member? And those types of questions can help us, I think, better understand the outrage expressed in today's gospel by the longer serving laborers. They saw their treatment as a matter of unfairness. These hired hands had labored harder and longer, but they got the same pay as those who worked much shorter hours. How can we not feel their pain, their sense of injustice? Can we not fail to feel some sympathy for those who worked the longest but didn't feel properly treated? Living in community, whether it's a church congregation or the city of Webster Groves or the city of Kirkwood or wherever you happen to live, or whether living in the community of your family, in all of these places and others, or work settings, we inevitably have experiences that allow us to identify with the workers in today's gospel stories. And indeed, there are serious instances of economic and social injustice in our lives and in the wider world. A friend recently posted a retort to the somewhat out of control gender reveal phenomena that's been going on for a couple of years now, I think. Somebody blew up blue or pink fireworks that set off a forest fire of some kind. It was terrible. But my friend said, well, instead of having those kind of big showy things, I could just give people a wallet. And if there's $1 in the wallet, it's a boy. And if it's 72 cents, it's a girl. Income inequality is a serious issue in our society, not only based on gender, but also based on race. But that's a topic not adequately explored in a sermon, but perhaps in a study group in our church. Hint, hint. But also injustice may come at a more personal level. We may have felt slighted at the level of having maybe given a great deal of time to our child's school or to the soccer league, or again to this church. Or perhaps in your family, you're the one who does the most again and again for your family get-togethers, yet you don't feel honored or appreciated proportionately to your contribution. There's so much in life that's unfair. Again, whether it's family, work, church, or community. But therefore, one of the first things we learn from today's gospel is that Jesus doesn't care much about fairness or unfairness in the conventional way that we tend to think about it. He was not focused on first place winners. Instead, Jesus turns our normal views upside down. And he shakes them so that we can more clearly see the truth of God's values. He challenges our religious assumptions, affirming really a very radical understanding of God's autonomy. We saw it in the first reading today as well. Jesus challenges those assumptions about our relationship with God and really upsets the, conventional theological views and tenets of popular psychology even. And Jesus shocks us out of those common, your God is too small, misunderstandings of God by giving us this deeper insight into the character and purposes of God. He invites us to glimpse into the utter, limitless generosity of God in today's story of the gospel. He wants us to understand that the worth of human beings is not measured by our earnings, how well we perform, or any of the usual measures, status, popularity, social achievement, productivity, wealth, or physical appearance. Jesus wants us to know that our worth as human beings is absolutely affirmed by God, not because of anything we have done or can do, but because of God's creative and life-affirming love for us. God works with a different reality in a different direction and by different standards than by our limited worldly understanding about what is fair and unfair. And in this parable of the laborers in the vineyard, as it's come to be known, those who work different amounts of time receive the same pay. Jesus wants us to know in that story that God would have us concentrate on our own love and service and not compare it with anyone else. Today we have heard Jesus turn one of our normal worldly views upside down, and in so doing, he actually places those values right side up. Today's parable teaches us that life is, from God's point of view, not a matter of fairness or unfairness, earning or not earning. It's not a matter of deserving or undeserving. Instead, it's a matter of grace. Grace and love overflowing. God's love and compassion are gifts for all. Not one of us is left behind in the way of love, or considered a loser, or left with a short measure of God's love. I also think it reminds us that at times when we are not able to work a full day, when our faith and our feelings are at a low ebb, God still cares for us, filling us and surrounding us with a full measure of love. And Jesus urges us to do the same. Amen.